Obviously, Brock Lesnar. How do you feel with this Brock Lesnar thing coming up? Obviously, that.
Yeah, I've been saying the same thing for 25 years. They deal them, I play them.
Depending on how long Brock is going to be around in WWE, I think he might be retiring at next year's SummerSlam in Minnesota.
What if I told you that WWE's obsession with part-time superstars is creating the biggest talent crisis in company history? Brock Lesnar's shocking return has triggered the biggest exodus of talent WWE has ever seen. That's right, the pattern of bringing back legends at the expense of full-time wrestlers has reached a breaking point. And what I'm about to reveal will show you exactly why WWE's current model is unsustainable.
Yeah, he's Brock Lesnar, man. He picks you up and throws you on your head. There's nothing nice about that. Yeah, it's very tough to work with, a human being like that some call him like the alpha male.
Wrestling fans, what's good? Welcome back to the channel where we break down the real issues plaguing professional wrestling. And today we're diving deep into WWE's most destructive pattern. You've seen it happen over and over again. WWE builds up their full-time roster for months, creates compelling storylines, gets fans invested, and then boom, a part-time superstar returns and everything gets scrapped. This isn't just about one person. This is about a systemic problem that's been destroying WWE's credibility for years. We're talking about a company that consistently undermines their own talent in favor of nostalgia acts and part-time attractions. But here's the thing that'll blow your mind. The full-time roster is fed up, and the cracks are starting to show in ways WWE can't hide anymore. Stick around, because I'm going to break down exactly why WWE's current business model is setting them up for catastrophic failure. Let's talk facts here. Every single time WWE wants to generate buzz, what do? They bring back a part-time superstar who hasn't been seen in months or even years. Look at the evidence. In 2019, they spent months building up Kofi Kingston's incredible underdog story. The man worked his heart out, had the crowd eating out of his palm, was moving merchandise. And then what happened? Brock Lesnar returned and ended his reign in 8 seconds on a random SmackDown. 8 seconds. Do you understand what that did to Kofi's credibility? Do you realize how that made every other full-time wrestler feel about their own potential?
I hate to say it, but ever since I was a little kid, I just been a bully. And I like, not necessarily just picking on anybody, but I just like getting my nose dirty and getting, I never turned down a fight, even as a young kid. But, my mom used to chew my ass because I'd go to town looking for fights, and she said, if you're going to do it, you might as well earn some money at it. God, beep.
And it's not just Kofi. Remember when they positioned Bobby Lashley as this unstoppable monster? The Almighty was dominating everyone, looked like a legitimate threat, until guess who showed up? Another part-time return completely overshadowed months of character development. The New Day spent years being one of WWE's most reliable acts, moving merchandise, getting crowd reactions, being there every single week, only to be treated as cannon fodder whenever WWE needed to make someone else look strong. This pattern is destroying the locker room morale, and if you think the boys in the back aren't talking about it, you're dead wrong. But here's what WWE doesn't want you to understand. This isn't just bad for the wrestlers, it's bad for business. When you consistently make your full-time roster look weak, what happens to ticket sales between the big shows? When fans know that the people they see every week don't really matter, why would they invest emotionally in the product? Look at the numbers. WWE's weekly television ratings have been in steady decline for years. And it's not just because of streaming. It's because fans have learned not to get attached to storylines that'll be abandoned the moment someone bigger shows up. Drew McIntyre is the perfect example of this. The man is a legitimate main event talent, has the look, has the skills, connects with the crowd, but how many times has his momentum been killed by part-time returns? How many times has he been treated as a stepping stone rather than a destination? And don't even get me started on Seth Rollins. This man has been WWE's workhorse for years. He's been their go-to guy, their reliable main eventer, their company man, and yet every time he builds up steam, here comes another part-time return to steal his thunder. The pattern is clear. WWE keeps asking their full-time talent to make these part-time stars look good, but what do the full-time guys get in return? Nothing. Now here's where things get interesting, because the wrestling landscape has changed. These full-time superstars aren't stuck anymore. They have options. AEW has proven that you can build a successful wrestling company by focusing on your full-time roster. Tony Khan doesn't bring in part-time legends to squash his champions. He doesn't abandon storylines for nostalgic pops. And the WWE locker room is watching. They're seeing guys like Jon Moxley, CM Punk, and others getting the respect and creative freedom they deserve elsewhere. Kevin Owens has been vocal about his frustrations with WWE's booking patterns. The man has openly criticized how the company treats their full-time talent. And he's not alone. Sami Zayn, one of the most beloved wrestlers in the industry, has hinted at his frustrations with being treated as an afterthought whenever WWE needs to elevate someone else. Even Roman Reigns, WWE's golden boy, has had to deal with this pattern. Remember how many times his title reigns were overshadowed by part-time returns? Remember how many times his big moments were stolen by someone who shows up twice a year? The writing is on the wall. These wrestlers are professionals, but they're also human beings who want to be valued for their contributions. And let's talk about the elephant in the room, those Saudi Arabia shows. WWE's deal with Saudi Arabia has created this toxic cycle where they feel pressured to bring back every single legend and part-time star for these massive paydays. But at what cost? Every time WWE does one of these nostalgia-heavy shows, it sends a message to their full-time roster that they're just placeholders until the real stars show up. The women's division gets decimated for these shows. Talented performers like Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, and others get sidelined while WWE focuses on part-time male attractions. And the international audience? They're not stupid. They can see that WWE's weekly product doesn't match the special attraction shows. They can tell when WWE is just going through the motions with their regular programming. This creates a situation where WWE's own business model is cannibalizing their weekly product. They're teaching fans that the only shows worth watching are the ones with part-time returns. But here's where things get really interesting. Netflix just paid WWE $5 billion for their streaming rights. That's billion with a B. Now, Netflix isn't paying that money for part-time attractions who show up twice a year. They're paying for consistent, high-quality content that keeps subscribers engaged week after week. Netflix executives aren't wrestling fans. They're data analysts. And the data shows that subscriber engagement is highest with consistent, ongoing storylines featuring characters people can follow and invest in. This puts WWE in an impossible position. They need to satisfy Netflix's demand for consistent programming while also maintaining their addiction to part-time spectacles. Something's got to give. And my prediction? It's going to be the part-time model that breaks first. Netflix has the power to demand changes to WWE's programming strategy, and they're not going to accept excuses about why their weekly shows can't maintain quality. Meanwhile, AEW continues to prove that you can build a successful wrestling company without relying on part-time attractions. Look at their track record. When was the last time AEW brought in a legend to squash one of their champions? When was the last time they abandoned a storyline for a nostalgic pop? Tony Khan has built his entire philosophy around respecting his full-time roster. He gives them creative freedom, he follows through on storylines, and he treats his champions like stars. The contrast couldn't be more obvious. AEW wrestlers look like they're having fun. They look like they believe in what they're doing. They look like they matter. Compare that to WWE, where you can see the frustration on wrestlers' faces when they know their storylines are about to be derailed by the next part-time return. Jon Moxley didn't leave WWE just for money. He left because he wanted to be treated like a main event wrestler instead of a supporting character in someone else's comeback story. CM Punk's entire WWE departure was based on this exact issue. He was tired of being overshadowed by part-time attractions and being treated like he didn't matter. So here's the reality check that WWE needs to face. Their current model is unsustainable. You can't keep asking your full-time roster to be professional while treating them like they're disposable. These are talented performers with options, and they're starting to realize their worth. The contract negotiation landscape has completely changed. Wrestlers now have leverage they've never had before. They can point to AEW's success and demand better treatment. WWE's old intimidation tactics don't work anymore. They can't threaten wrestlers with nowhere else to go because that's simply not true anymore. And here's the nuclear option that WWE is terrified of. What happens when their next contract negotiation cycle comes up? What happens when multiple main event talents decide they're tired of this pattern? WWE built their entire recent strategy around a small group of part-time attractions. But what happens when those attractions retire permanently? What happens when they have to rely on a demoralized full-time roster that's been treated as second-class citizens for years? So there you have it, wrestling fans, the uncomfortable truth about WWE's self-destructive booking pattern. This isn't about hating any individual wrestler. It's about recognizing a broken system that's hurting everyone involved. WWE's obsession with part-time attractions is creating a crisis that threatens their long-term viability. The evidence is overwhelming. Declining ratings, frustrated talent, competition that's proving there's a better way, and business partners demanding consistent quality. WWE is at a crossroads. They can either evolve their model to respect their full-time talent, or they can watch that talent walk away to companies that value their contributions. The clock is ticking. The wrestling landscape has changed, and WWE needs to change with it or risk being left behind. This could be the beginning of the most dramatic shift in wrestling history, and we're here to document every second of it. What do you think? Is WWE's part-time attraction model sustainable? Can they change their ways before it's too late? And most importantly, are we witnessing the end of an era? Smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell because this story is just getting started.